Do we have audio, everybody?
We do.
Okay. It was super quiet. I'm like, my volume
Yeah,
is.
we did struggle during finance meeting.
You did.
Just so, well, a little bit when, just so you know, Norma Jean, I don't know if it's going to happen, but anytime like when I went and shared my presentation, I went mute and then trying to come out of mute. So it was a little bit challenging, but we worked it through. It was fine. Oh, here comes everybody.
Trying to check, is this working?
I think you have a double echo, Bob.
Yeah, well, I finally, I'm gonna log off of my phone. I think I'm all right. I hope I am. All right, you still hear me? Okay, good. All right, off the phone.
Yeah, I got you, Bob. I can hear you.
Good. I couldn't get my school board laptop to work, so this is the one I bought from the school about 4 years ago when
Yeah,
out.
yeah,
So it's an old HP. We'll see if it holds up.
yeah.
Okay, Robbie, if you just position yourself just right, looks like
I
you
know.
have
It looks like
antlers.
I got a set of antlers, doesn't it? Those are my moose antlers.
All
Yeah.
right, it is 6:30. I'd like to go ahead and call our meeting to order. If everybody would say the pledge with me, I'd appreciate that. I
I pledge
allegiance
allegiance
to the flag
United States
of the
of
United
States
States
of
of America,
America,
Republic for
and
which
to
and
the
to the
republic for which it
which it
stands,
stands,
one nation,
nation,
under
God,
God,
indivisible,
indivisible, with
with liberty
and justice for all.
for all. All right, any agenda adjustments, Katie? Okay. Seeing as there's none, we'll go down to 2, consideration of the minutes. To approve the minutes of the January 11th, 2023, excuse me, Board of Directors meeting.
So moved. Second.
All right, any discussion? Seeing as there's none, I'm gonna go ahead and do a roll call vote. Diane,
Yes,
Vicky,
Yes.
Jen,
Yes.
Robbie,
yes.
Christy,
Yes.
Bob,
Yes.
and Laura.
Yes.
All right, and I'm a yes. At this time, we'll open it up to public comment. As always, please make sure that you introduce yourself and what town you are from. Let us know if you have by raising your hand and we'll call on you. Is there anyone that would like to make a comment? All right, seeing as there's none, we'll continue to move on to number 4, petitions and communications. Are there any? No. Okay. Number 5, reports, the superintendent report.
Okay, good evening, everyone. Can you hear me? Yes, I see my light on. That always is a good sign. So in the superintendent's update this week, which I'm going to, right here, you can see that we did do, and Kathy was working on with Vicki, I believe, on the Mike Hannigan collection that is posted to our website. And so we'll be pleased when people choose to donate for him. And then I also noted that we went to the superintendent's convocation, Kathy and I. It was a really good session with Andy Doloff, the Yarmouth superintendent, who's recently written a book. So we got a lot of good professional development, networking, connecting around upcoming bills. The other thing, I had a great time visiting the skills competition at LRTC and checking in with Oak Hill students. It was great to see our students intense around competition and really trying to do their best, and got to talk to one of our students that owns his own small business already excited about making money in his field. And then seeing one of our plumbing students being one of the top plumbing students in the program, but all of our students were working really hard. It was great to see that. And then highlighting all the work that was done at the January workshop day, and that we, the negotiating team, participated in the collective bargaining post-pandemic session that Drummond Woodson held last Friday. So those were the highlights from the week. And then I did want to mention that I know there's been some discussion around will we move to remote learning for snow days. If we have a snow day tomorrow, which we are crossing our fingers that we can do a delayed start tomorrow. That's why we did not call it this evening, is watching the forecast shifting and changing, especially around temperature. We're hoping things will be ready for bus rolling out at 8 tomorrow morning, but we're keeping an eye on, we'll be up early tomorrow, checking with the towns and checking the weather reports. So knowing that that will be number 4, and knowing if we go to 5, beyond 5, we move into the 3rd week of June. So we want you to know we're recognizing there's a need to think about it. And our administrative team tomorrow will be talking about logistics. What do we need to do around what are we going to provide if we go to a learning day? You know, about technology going home, especially at pre-K 4. So there's some legwork we want to do in talking about how much of a lift would there be for our staff to be ready for after the 5th snow day. That would be our goal, is to have regular snow days, and then after the 5th, possibly moving into remote learning days. We did check with Auburn, who went to remote days starting tomorrow. We talked, Kathy, I talked to their nutrition director about what are they providing, what's the cost. So based on what they're providing, which is a cereal, a milk, granola bar, a sandwich, and some fruit, they're looking at about $3 per student, and we were thinking it's probably going to be closer to $5 per student. One thing that I wanted to kind of get your feedback is we would do a survey, because we don't have to follow the same regulations to say it would automatically go to our free and reduced students. We could do a sign up. Auburn had a sign up, and only, now this was at the beginning of the week, we're at 60 families that signed up, which isn't a huge expense. However, we would put out the survey, encourage parents to sign up, and then we would have to cost out that, thinking, you know, if it runs $5 per student and 1,000 students sign up, there's $5,000. So we would have to weigh out the affordability on that. But there are things we have to talk about, like what are our educational technicians going to be doing, secretaries, you know, every piece of this puzzle, what are we going to provide for learning? Because in talking with Jill, you know, really important to make it meaningful. It doesn't have to be all day. We're required to provide 3 hours of instructional activities or connections with students. So we're going to talk to our administrative team, what is that we could provide. So we're having conversations. I want to get your feedback about that, knowing that we've been hit with a lot of storms in a row. So I see, Laura, you have your hand up. Jill, I don't know if you saw that. Okay. Questions, comments? Christy? Oh, Laura, you came off. Do you want to go first, Laura, and then I'll go to Christy?
Yeah, I was just wondering with you said for the 1 to 4, figuring out what that looks like. Is that looking like it's a technology kind of concern, or is there a packet? I know there was kind of a hybrid between the two, so you're kind of considering whether it'll be a packet or a technology piece.
Yeah, that's what we really want to talk about, is what packets by grade level, we want to make sure that there's consistency around it aligning with what is going on in the classroom and the standards. We also want to see, would they be prepared to do a Google Meet or meet, some type of meeting with the student, whether it might be once to kick them off. So that's what we want to talk to the pre-K for teachers, just what is going to be manageable and reasonable. And we also want to make sure families recognize if they have childcare that can't perform, participate, or their internet connectivity isn't working, we want parents to recognize they can have an excused absent on that day and perhaps do the work at a later time, so that there is some flexibility there
And then I
around
know
what we
that
would offer.
there's that concern with the cost of the meals, but I
Yes.
think you can kind of counter some of that with the cost of the fuel that you're not using for 5 bus runs. So just
Yeah,
something else to
no, good point, Laura. We talked about that. We also talked about, obviously education is our first priority. And then I have to wear the finance hat too. As we go into that third week of June, we have a holiday. And in our support staff contract, if our school year includes that holiday, we need to pay that. We did not budget, not knowing how many snow days and stuff like that. So there would be approximately, Jessica was telling me, approximately, we haven't totally figured it out, around $16,000 for that. So if we went into remote learning, we would have, there's that balance of looking financially and what's best educationally. But we wanted the public to know we know that that's a question and we're looking at it.
Christy, you had your hand up next.
I did. Couple of clarifying questions.
Yeah.
Does the work have to happen at the same time as the snow day? So if we had to extend the year, let's say we go past day, we have currently 3 snow days on the books. Let's say we have 3 more, and we have traditional snow days on those 3 days. Could students do the work and submit evidence for the remote days at the end of the school year?
Oh,
Because I'm just thinking about
I
it, like,
I don't see why you couldn't do that.
yeah, because I'm just like, as a student, as somebody who's worked in school systems, like towards the end of the school year, there's a lot of fun stuff that happens, which is super important. But I think it might be an easier solution to have your remote makeup days at the end of the school year, rather than trying to build them in during a busy winter time. Because honestly, even if parents are fortunate enough to have a day off from work, it's not a day off from work, because you're cleaning up, you might not have power, you might not have internet. There's just so many variables that I wonder, if we are to go that route, can we think about pushing it back, extending the school year, but having the remote learning happen at the tail end?
No, I think that's a great idea. Technology, I think would be a challenge, and NJ would have to speak up about that. Is, I know we collect devices as we come in, but we also have them in the summer. So I guess that would be a logistic thing tomorrow,
Yeah.
Christy, when we talk to the A team. What if past the 5 days, our makeup days are remote learning days, is what I'm hearing you say.
That is
Makeup
exactly
days.
what I'm saying.
Yeah.
And I also remember prior to COVID, when we had a winter that it was a ton of snow days, if we were able to meet a certain percentage, we did like a vacation school day, or we had talked about that. I wasn't on the school board at the time, but other districts have done that. Like, if you can make X amount percentage of students come, you can count it as a school day, a random day that we were going to have off anyway.
It's interesting you should say that, because I think, and I used to say that too, 50% or whatever. And I think that we've had clarification on that. So we probably couldn't do that. Kathy and I threw out, we'd have to work with the teachers union around the comp day before April vacation, but everybody's really already planned that. I'm going to get a lot of, well, I already planned my trip, I'm already late, that's not going to be easy. So I think you bringing up that remote day at the end, that, maybe that's a possibility.
That could be a better solution.
Bob, I saw
Jen-
your,
Oh,
or
go
Je-
ahead.
I saw Jen on mute, but I didn't see her hand.
Yeah.
Thank you. I guess I feel like I need to echo what Robbie said last time around, that I feel like we have to try to retrofit into these archaic expectations when the reality is that we have just about everything that's available to us, and we've gone through and done all of these exercises, if you will, and it just makes sense that if we could possibly do what we can and having all of the various expectations met, that it would make sense to try and have remote days as much as possible. And I understand all of the different variables in terms of, power, electricity, Wi-Fi, food, instructional time, childcare, all of that. But it just makes more sense to me. And I like Christy's idea as well of trying to have it on the end. I just feel like, it would make more sense to try and do remote days as much as possible.
All right, thank you, Jen. And then I saw Bob, and then it's Robbie.
Yeah, I'm in the same. I think we provided one-to-ones. We have discussed in the past that we would now have the ability to do remote days when snow days comes around. That's what we had talked about before the pandemic and then after that. So everybody's already planning on working that day. And if they think they're going to have a snow day, they can take their laptop that we provide them home and be able to log in and have a full day of classes, learning opportunities. We just have to make sure that we're giving them a lunch so that we'll count for a day. If we can just do packets and they can make it up at the end of the year, well, let's give them a packet now and they can chip away at it. 2 students this Saturday, 25 next Saturday, and at the end of the year, they'll all done it and we can count the days. I don't count that much of an education. That's just a exercise in trying to not have to extend the school year, and which we don't want to do. So we have the technology, we have the ability, we ought to do just remote school days, just like we were doing them when the schools were shut, and go that route, because we probably will have more snow days. And if we had been doing it using the technology that we spend a lot of money on, we wouldn't have any of them now. We'd all been remote.
Robbie?
Yeah, I don't want to beat a dead horse, but I can tell you for a fact, the biggest problem that we're going to have with this is parents don't know what's going on. We have to set a policy and we have to stay with it. Now, if we go 100% remote, we're going to have the people that say, oh, my student will never have a traditional snow day. Let them go have a snow day. The work is going to be there. They're going to know what it is that they need to make up, whether it's a snow day or not. They don't have power. But I think the best thing for the community is to set the program and be consistent. Because as the problem we have right now, we don't know if it's a remote day, if it's going to be a traditional snow day. I feel, and I've felt this way since we've gone to 1-on-1, we don't need snow days anymore. And I've had this discussion with multiple superintendents. The 180 days is an archaic number. If you have a student that has met the criteria to move forward and it's Memorial Weekend, why bring them back for 2 more weeks of school so they can have a field day? They can have, a movie day. Everybody knows what the end of the school year is like. So if you've met the criteria to move on and you're at grade level and you're on task, okay, your year ends Memorial Weekend, but bring the other students back that didn't finish their work, that aren't on pace, work with them for the next two weeks and finish the school year like that and not have these archaic snow days that we have the technology to work around. If you want your student to have a traditional snow day, send them outside to play, and they're going to know what work they need to do when they get done. They can either do it that evening, they can do it over the next few days, but I don't think we need to keep having this discussion back and forth. We need to set the policy, and that's the way we go.
All right, thank you, everybody. So Katie, did you have anything else?
No, there are no other workshop days. There are comp days coming up. That I know, Diane, I saw you ask that. Remember, the reason we went traditional is affordability of this. So now that we've gone 5, and let's hope, if we did this after 5 and maybe we only had 3 after, rather than having to have paid for 8, that's why we're having the discussion is
right.
Okay. So we have an 18 meeting tomorrow, regardless of a snow day. And one of our big items is talking this through. So I appreciate your ideas and suggestions and input. And if we move forward after the 5th day, absolutely, there will be major communication so that parents aren't confused that this is what's going on, and they can anticipate it, get a survey, and hopefully we have school tomorrow. So we have 2 snow days as a buffer. I appreciate the input. Okay.
All right, so we'll continue to keep moving on. If you still have more concerns or comments for Katie about the remote day, go ahead, give her an email, but let's keep moving on. Next, 5.2, Assistant Superintendent Report.
Yes, thank you. I'll keep this brief, but we are in our winter benchmark, despite the different snow days and this hot topic that we just finished. Even though we are working on our winter assessments like NWA, remember that's now the new MEA. So we have an NWA reading and an NWA math. I am already attending a lot of DOE trainings. I have about 12 hours of training this month in February to get prepped for the spring assessment. If you remember in the fall, we talked about how the NWA assessment is going to change to what's called a through assessment in the spring. It'll be done through a different platform. And the intent is it's going to be a smaller version of the fall and winter. So I'll have like a map portion, but then it'll also have a summative piece so we can compare them to the main learning results. So we'll be doing some training with our admin to then help train our staff to get ready for that spring assessment. We also had our workshop day on January 13th, and we've been having some PLGs to look at the data that's been happening in the winter, being reflective about what's going well, what are some changes that we need to make in instruction. I know our staff at pre-K 4 have definitely been focusing on some pacing in both literacy and math to kind of see where we at and how do we need to make adjustments to go through June. They also have been doing a lot of work on their PPEG, their professional growth, professional plans, looking at their target elements and being reflective on how they're doing that. And our admin and our coaches and mentors have all been giving observations and feedback to all our staff. The last one is the PLG survey. So the PLG survey got approved at CAI tonight. So we will be sending out the survey to all the stakeholders like we did the last time. I will then have the survey results March 8th for CAI, and they will come back to you to look at the difference between early release and late start. All I have is that. Any questions?
Okay, thank you, Kathy. 5.3 financial report. I'm assuming that'll come at committee. Okay. 5.4 with the administrator's report will happen at our next meeting. So we'll head right into director's report. Norma Jean.
Kathy, I'm going to have to claim back host to share. Is that okay? Can everybody see the screen? I hope. Yay, all right. All right, well, thank you, welcome for having us this evening on Zoom. This is very exciting, you know, it's almost like remote learning, I love it. So this will be good. So for technology, just a quick update, Kathy mentioned that we're in our NWA window. So we're busy supporting that, supporting teachers, last minute things, adding kids to test sessions. It's, you know, just trying to do whatever we need to do to make it happen. We're continuing, we just ended semester 1 at the high school and at the middle school. So we've been working on PowerSchool, supporting, adding any last minute standards, the grade book, GPA for the high school, super important. Report cards, that type of thing. And we are planning for our projects February and April break. So during February, we're doing some server updates and consolidation. So we're eliminating a couple of older servers. And then we're isolating a vendor server from the internal network, more for safety reasons. We'll talk about that in a couple of minutes. And then April, we're hoping that we upgrade our wireless network through E-Rate at the high school, and that equipment will actually shift over to Carricker and Libby Tozier. So it isn't like we're boxing up old equipment, it will upgrade. So we're upgrading the high school, and what's at the high school will upgrade Carricker and Libby Tozier. So it's a win-win all the way around. One thing I want to talk about tonight was something that you hear a lot about in the news, and hopefully you can, let me just minimize so I'm not looking at myself. How's that sound? For cybersecurity, you hear about a lot of it on the news. One of our programs like Seesaw had an attack in early September where a message was sent out with inappropriate images. So there's some different kinds of cybersecurity. We'll talk about those in a second. I thought you'd be interested in this map, and also in your Google Drive, both for admin and for the school board, you have this whole packet in your drive I shared with you earlier this evening. And so cybersecurity is just the practice of protecting our systems, our networks, our programs from attacks. And so an attack is, you know, they want to, you know, basically access our data, our private data. They want to destroy sensitive data. They want to gather information. They want to extort money, and then they want to disrupt business as usual. So that was just kind of a quick overview of some different stuff. As you look, the Manus had a few. We've probably seen those in the news, but the link is here, but you have that entire document in your drive if you're interested. So next slide. And so something that you'll hear about more, I just want to bring it up, we'll talk about it during budget season, is there's a couple items in the budget, the technology budget, so that we can be more proactive with our cybersecurity and preparing for it. Couple of quick things. A lot of people think that our staff and our students are you know, they make us the most vulnerable for cybersecurity attacks. More than likely, it's our vendors. So we have had a few attacks on our network in the past few years. And so we've had like a vendor server on site that had 3 episodes of ransomware. We've had that same server been used for data mining for Bitcoins. And then we've also had that server attacked, and let me let one person in, and actually shift across to our payroll server, which was very scary for a quick second. We caught it in time and they didn't access any data, which was great. So a couple of things that we're doing is, you know, do we have a process of reporting incidents? So in that drive that I shared with you is a draft document that the tech director group across Maine is working on. And then when we get into budget season, you'll see some budget lines for professional development and some network security services that I'm suggesting that we add to be proactive. And then you know, sort of PD and how we make everybody aware of, you know, even the smaller things. Like we've had a few teachers that actually got an email that looked like was from their building admin. Asked them to buy a gift card, and actually shared that gift card with the person that wasn't actually a minister. So from little to big. And so yeah, that's mine, quick, and I can't click. So let me go back. And I'm gonna, let's see, I can't see you guys. All right, let's get back here. We love technology, don't we? Come on. All right, so that's mine in a nutshell, just a quick update and a little bit about cybersecurity, but I can welcome any questions you may have.
Anyone have anything for Laura?
Oh, you're so fast.
I'm sorry. I'm speedy.
No,
I'm sorry.
No, Jill, like I clicked the button and she's like, "Bloop." I was just curious about like the website. Is that something that the technology department usually kind of keeps a pulse on and updating and all of those things?
We do. We keep an update on the website. We try to update staff, and then as building admin let us know, this is out of date. Can you update this? Can we change this? We do that for them. And we can add other people in for rights as well. Our website we have now, the web host a little bit, it's getting a little outdated. We are switching for the fall, or more like July-ish. So you'll hear more about that in the next couple months about what we're going to, the app that we'll be using, that type of thing. But yes, the technology department, and we work with building admin to keep everything up to date.
Awesome, thank you.
Anyone else? No, thank you, Norma Jean.
Thank
Next
you.
up is Jonathan.
Alrighty, everyone can hear me okay? NJ, can you be my next slide person?
Just say next slide. How's that?
Okay, perfect. All right, next slide. So a couple news and announcements on the facility side of things. We've just recently had a new hire. His name is Larry Whitmore. He is the night shift Libby Tozier custodian that we needed to fill. We had someone leave a few months ago, so we've been searching for someone. And Larry comes from the city of Gardner. I've heard many good things from not only his references, but people that actually call. Very, very excited to have him on board. Another interesting thing that we're doing is the Verkada door card readers. So basically this is the security access control. We've used the middle school, as we've previously said in other updates, as our pilot school. And today we actually rolled it out to the teaching staff. With it being a half day Wednesday, we used, I just borrowed 10 minutes of PLC time to go over the SOP that I created for the Verkada door card readers. So all the staff have now been issued, teaching staff anyways, who were there today have been issued door card access cards. They have their picture on it, so it acts actually as an ID. So it proves that they are a staff member of the school, which is great for, you need it to get in the building, but it's also identifying you as an employee, which is good for security. And they, in the process, also turned in their keys that work the exterior of the building only. So we're still in the process of dishing out those cards to everyone. The next step will be a couple of months of trial and error, seeing how it works, working out any kinks. And then assuming that everything goes the way as planned, we'll then look to rekey the outside of the building to eliminate anyone who has keys to the school who shouldn't. But we don't want to jump too quickly on that. We want to make sure we work out any kinks. And then finally, just a quick safety committee update. Some projects that we are working on right now are window numbers. So having consistent window and door numbers throughout each classroom on the exterior, so that fire, police, EMS, any emergency responders know, looking on a map, they'll know which room they're looking at from the exterior of the building. So we're working on getting all of those together. And then we're also looking to have updated building maps, basically bird's eye view of all the schools. We're making them all uniform and make sure all the windows and door numbers match. And then once we've gotten that all together, we'll send those off to the Sabatis chief of police. And then he is going to get it out to, they have a database, the Maine State Police, county police, local police, fire, they all have a single database that they can put those maps on, and then they can all access it in the event of an actual emergency. They all have the ability to pull those maps up and say, okay, here we are at the high school, here's where we are currently, and here's the issue that we need to get to. So it can be very quick and punctual in the event of an actual emergency. NJ, next slide. And transportation, again, news and announcements. We have a new hire, April Pinard. So she's going to be helping us with some vacancies that with people being out due to illness or emergencies. She's also going to act as a bus aide in part of learning her route and sitting on the bus. She can also act as that bus aide to help with keeping the driver's eyes on the road and taking care of any potential issues or problems or questions that the students might have on the bus. Looking to then make some adjustments in the spring as well. We've struggled with staffing and particularly getting trips taken care of, be that field trips, sports trips, primarily just due to just barely having enough drivers to get kids to and from school. So I'm going to make some tweaks to the staffing that we have now and look to try and bring or reorganize the drivers a little bit, so we have an available trip driver to help out with those field trips that teachers or staff want to leave, at say 7:30 in the morning when every other bus driver is out doing a run, to try and support teachers and students that way. Also, school sporting events that dismiss at 2 o'clock when we're trying to do our afternoon runs, trying to get a trip driver set up and squared away so we can get these kids to their sporting events or to their field trips. And then lastly, we're getting close on specific bus robocalls. We've been sending that message out to the entire district, even if it's specifically about one bus being either shut down or delayed or something of that nature. We're really close and working with technology to getting it so if I need to put a message out or Katie needs to put a message out about a specific bus, we can send it specifically to the parents and students that take that bus. And that's about everything I have for news announcements. If anyone has any questions.
Diane?
Jonathan, on that pass to get in at Oak Hill Middle School, do they have to put a passcode in as well?
Not for the card readers, no. If they were, say, the first one in the building, just like if they were to unlock it with a traditional key, they do have to enter their the security alarm code. But if they aren't the first one in the building and the alarm's already been disarmed, it's just a matter of scanning their scanning their card on the card reader outside, and it unlocks the door and they walk right in.
When I was in Lewiston, we had you would scan your card, but then you had to put in a code that would unlock the door.
That would associate that person is really who that is. Right. So we don't have that here specifically with this system. However, to somewhat combat that, we do have a camera associated with every card reader. So we'd pick it up pretty quickly if we noticed a pattern of someone badging into the building and realizing it wasn't actually them.
Okay.
So, and the cards do have their picture on them. So we could pretty quickly say, okay, you're clearly using someone's card, or it's been lost or stolen. And I did have a brief discussion too with the staff about if you lose your card, if it gets stolen, here's protocol, here's procedure.
Thank you.
Laura?
Just a thought, because I have badge card access at my job, and we actually have it printed on our cards as well if it's ever lost or stolen, returned to. So I don't know if yours have that, but that's pretty helpful in the event it was to be misplaced. And it's just like a little sticker on it. And then I just had a couple of questions about we experienced some of that like transportation with sports and things. Is there any discussion on like the director and coaches and teachers maybe getting certified to drive bus? Like, does that?
Yeah, no, that's a good question. We've brought that up and talked about that in the past. The real hiccup that we're running into is getting them the training that they need. So before EDLT came out, which is entry-level driver's training, we had a bus driver who's on our staff right now and another driver who drives for another school district work with adult ed and can run people through the training for it, and then they go for their road test and things of that nature and their actual written test. Since February of 2022, when the federal government introduced the EDLT, those people who were doing that training for us are now not considered certified. So the roadblock is getting them certified and getting them basically able to teach people again how to drive the bus. That cost is estimated about $4,000 a person to get them. The last time I had checked, it was roughly about $4,000 a person to get them certified. And in working with Jim Palmer a little bit in adult ed, he could speak more on this, but we had reached out to other school districts in hopes that maybe if other school districts helped contribute and pay for that training, that we would then in turn make slots available to help get their people trained up as well. That didn't seem to interest a lot of districts, so that's sort of the roadblock that we were running into.
So are we able to get them certified, or what? Like, so roadblock is it's not nothing. Can you help me?
I would say just, at first glance, the cost. Like I said, the last time I had looked into it, it was, I was told $4,000 when it's all said and done per person. So that was something that obviously wasn't budgeted for because we weren't anticipating or didn't know that was maybe coming, the EDLT. So I guess that would be the first hurdle, is trying to figure out how to pay for that. And, if that's just a matter of trying to work that into next year's budget for July 1 and looking to try and do that maybe over the summer with them so that they can get training and teaching people again, then we can certainly go that route.
That, and Brian, I think, has brought it up to the coaches. He's going to speak later. Like our football coach has his license, so that helped during the fall season.
Did that answer?
Yeah, and then my only other question on the safety committee part, is there any discussion happening with the pickups and drop off at the different buildings?
You mean like parent pickup and drop off? Which pickups and drop offs do you mean specifically?
Yeah, so student pickup and how that's with cars and things all the way down both sides of the roads, and that entire whole thing.
No, that hasn't been brought up. We've brought up some other topics, but that's certainly something that I can add to the next meeting's agenda to be brought up and discussed. I guess you and I maybe could get together, but I'm just curious about what your specific concerns are as it relates to safety, but we could do that in another time if you'd like.
Yeah, and I think just driving by the schools at the 2 o'clock pickup would be enlightening, trying to pick up a kid, because I'm sure you might even be able to get one in your car, but that's it. So the 4,000 per certified person, will we revisit that, or Katie, can you help me? Does it just get tabled till next year, or?
Well, first we have to have people who are interested, and
Okay.
yes, and then there's availability of people, sites that can take people. And then, yes, there's a cost. So we would have to budget a cost, and I'm not sure we'll be able to do that. But
Okay.
anything's on the table.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Okay, I saw Robbie's hand up first. I'd like to kind of start moving on, so.
No, my questions were answered, Jill. Thanks.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
I see Jim has a hand raised.
Yeah, I was just going to add that I can add a little bit to the training for bus drivers in my report. It wasn't in my original report, but I do have an update with that.
Okay, thank you. All right, so we'll move on to Nancy, special ed.
So good evening, everybody. I don't have a whole lot tonight, but I just wanted to share a little bit of information and then maybe provide a glimpse into one of our, what's going on in one of our classrooms. So on our recent workshop day, we did some professional development with special ed teachers on executive functioning. We have a lot of kids with IEP goals in this area, probably more so at the high school. So we're talking about skills involved in planning ahead, learning how to manage your time, prioritizing tasks, sticking with a challenging task, and a lot more. Executive function is not a disability, but the disabilities that we do work with in special education definitely impact students' abilities to carry out these kinds of tasks and strategies. So we spent 3 hours on that, and we're going to continue working on that at our monthly PLGs. Next slide, NJ, please. So talking about one of our classrooms, again, Karen Taylor and her functional life skills students at the middle school, she is working to bring those executive functioning skills to life. So for January and February, she's had her students, each of her students, self-select a grit goal. And they're working on these with each other a little bit, but mostly they've designed them on their own, and they're creating all the steps and the tasks that go along with that. Next slide, please. So Karen defined for her students a grit goal. It's something you'd like to learn or try that has to be new and has to be challenging. So this has been a really good opportunity for kids to learn how to stick with something that's really hard, which is a real struggle for a lot of our kids. These students have spent a lot of time planning, and they're learning how to divide these difficult steps into smaller steps and then sequence them appropriately. Next slide, please. So to give a sense of what her kids are working on, several of them decided they wanted to work on cooking projects. One of them's planning a lunch of cheeseburgers with all the sides. Another one is working on preparing ziti with homemade sauce. Another one's doing homemade chicken noodle soup. One student's making dishes from Puerto Rico because she has a cousin in Puerto Rico. All these projects involve kids certainly taking stock of what's already in the kitchen in their classroom, making the list, doing all the shopping, and cooking for 8 people. They all had to provide a reason for why they wanted to select the goal they did. And one of them around Karen had told me, one of them around one of these cooking goals was said, I can't eat ramen noodles forever. So I thought that was kind of funny. Next slide, please. Another student decided he wanted to make his own iPad stand. These are not pictures. These are just generic pictures. These are not pictures of their actual work, but I hope to bring those to you probably in March. He made a template. He planned out all his materials. A wooden birdhouse is the end goal for one of those students. He said he wanted to watch the birds make a nest in the springtime. Next slide, please. I had mentioned before that Karen's students are learning how to play guitar. So one student wants to learn how to play an old song called Mountain High on the guitar. He wants to learn it beginning to end. Another student's goal is to learn how to use the Cricut machine in order to make his own stickers. And if you don't know what a Cricut machine is, it's a cutting tool, an electronic cutting tool that cuts designs that you have made out of many different kinds of fabric and papers. Next slide. And the last student wants to learn how to crochet a blanket. She's chosen her pattern, she selected her colors. So this is a really innovative endeavor by Karen, and I just think she should be commended for that, to really work towards giving her kids the skills and independence they're going to need. I know Katie talked in the beginning about somebody opening a plumbing business as a student. All of these skills will lead to these kids having jobs that are productive later. Next slide. And Karen just had submitted, just for fun, her kids really took advantage of the snowfall that we've been getting lately, and playing out in the snow this week for a little bit. And that's all I have.
Great. Anyone have any questions? No? All right. Thank you, Nancy. Next up is Brian.
All right, good evening, everybody. Norma Jean, if you could go ahead and skip to the next slide for me. I just want to give you guys an update on esports. I know I mentioned that in the last couple reports that we've had. So we finished up our first esports season. We had, as you can see, about 14 athletes compete. So there's about 5 to 6 different events that they can choose to compete in. So we kind of pull our kids at the beginning of each year, and they decided to compete in Rocket League and Splatoon 3. For those of you who may or may not be familiar, Rocket League is an esports game where it's essentially like soccer playing in a field, except instead of someone running around, you have a car or a vehicle with a variety of different abilities. And they try to, it's teams of multiple players playing against each other, trying to score on the other team. And then Splatoon is a variation of like a paintball match with different paintball sort of events. So The first season was kind of a learning curve. We had a new coach taking over, and there's been a lot of adaptations and rule changes with esports this year. It's still growing amongst the state. There's still a lot of schools that are kind of jumping on as the year goes. So of course, as new things continue to grow, there's growing pains along the way. So there's been a lot of forums as of recently, just the past week, where the MPA met and they're looking at changing some of the rules and how things work to kind of fit different main schools, because some of the games are actually regionalized. So our athletes might not just be playing kids or other athletes from the state of Maine. They could be playing outside the state as far as the region, where in like the Northeast region. So there's a lot of kind of changes that are coming, and it's pretty fluid with esports. But it's a pretty unique opportunity, and we're hoping to keep kind of growing the sport at Oak Hill. And Jay, if you would go in next slide, perfect. Unified basketball, we're just getting up and going. We just had our first practice this week. We're looking at a 6 or 7 game schedule, which is a full schedule for Unified. We have 14 athletes playing. If any of you have been to a game before, you already know how great it is. If you haven't, I'll be sure to send out a schedule once it gets finalized so you can get to a game. It's a lot of fun. We have a bunch of great kids participating. I know our student section that you may see at some of our basketball games is planning some special things for some Unified games. So it's a really cool opportunity. We're really excited just kind of get going. And like I said, they just had their first practice this week. So that ball is just kind of getting to roll. And then end of season events with the MPA. So a lot of our winter seasons are kind of starting to wrap up here. Both of our middle school basketball programs finished this week. The girls made it to the quarterfinals and happened to lose today to Maranacook. And the boys got to the preliminary round and lost to Buckfield earlier this week. But both teams did see a playoff run, which was good. Our hockey program is right around 500. They're doing strong too. Boys basketball is right on the edge of trying to jump into playoffs. Our girls basketball program has actually won 5 of the last 6 games. They're doing really well, and they're looking to definitely secure a playoff spot. Cheering has their regional competition this Saturday at Sanford, and then the state championship in Augusta next Saturday. So our winter sports are quickly kind of coming to an end here, and it's been a great season so far. NJ, if you go ahead and go to the next slide. And then lastly, I know I touch on eligibility every time just because it's ongoing. We did do middle school eligibility on January 6th. Was a good turnout. We had a couple kids who were missing some stuff, but they got it in quick, so that was taken care of. And then I know, Mr. Alberti was super clear and transparent about this, but because of the snow day on Friday, we did extend until Tuesday. So we gave teachers till Friday to kind of get grades entered, and then we'll be taking a look at the mid-season winter eligibility check this Friday when grades come out. And that was all I had for tonight. Are there any questions?
Doesn't look like it. Thank you, Brian.
Awesome. Thank you. Have a great night, everyone.
You too. All right, Jim, you are up next for adult ed.
All right, good evening. NJ, if you could just get to the next slide. So our winter and spring 2023 catalog came out. So you should have received those in your mailboxes or PO boxes. And this is the first time we've done it again since COVID. And as you'll hear later in my third slide, the response has been pretty good. We did split the cost with Lisbon. So that was helpful to reduce that cost because it is fairly expensive to put a brochure out and pay for all the mailing. So, but I'll be taking the extras that I get this week to schools to put out there and to some of the businesses around the community so that people have access to it even if they didn't get it in the mail. So next slide. Just some state level updates. We have a new adult ed director for the state. The one that was hired in the summer fallish stepped down, and it is somebody who worked underneath her. So with that, a lot of times there's some changes in how things are done, whether it be data reporting or curriculum for programs. But we will get to meet the new director officially in the next couple of weeks at one of our directors' meetings. The other piece state level wise is I've joined the professional development team at the state level for adult education. We had one meeting earlier this year. We were supposed to have one last Friday, but we'll make that one up, and then we have one later in the spring. But it's a committee of about 10 to 15 adult ed directors who talk about how we can get more professional development for our adult education teachers, our assistant directors, and directors as well. So next slide. So with the catalog coming out, these are some of the courses that we've been receiving some real positive response. I'm glad Nancy defined cricket, because I was afraid I was going to have to define that. But we did have some interest in offering a class called Learning to Use Your Cricket. A lot of Christmas gifts, I guess, were around cricket. So we're going to offer that class. That's going to be full. We have a first aid CPR and AED again coming up that has filled up already. One of the new ones that I tried is a welcome to breathtaking at night. And we're getting a pretty good response for that. I was a little surprised. It's something that York offers, and she offers it through Zoom, but she's actually going to come up to our building on March 22nd and offer that class. Pickleball again, there was some response early on, but we, in talking with some of the registrants, we're going to look at maybe trying to do that a little bit later in the spring, so we can get outdoors and do it maybe on the tennis courts. We have a pretty full defensive driving course coming up in early February. And then we have an introduction to Excel, which is some of our administrative assistants across the district and a few community members that will be participating in that. And this was, like I said, this wasn't part of my report, but where it was talked about earlier, we just received an email a couple weeks ago about a training for adult ed directors who want to learn more about CDL and or bus school driving trainings. There's a few across the state that offer it. What happened is there used to be a grant for the training, so it was easily affordable to offer those trainings a couple of years ago, but now that grant has drained. So a lot of programs aren't willing to touch the cost that it takes to train their drivers, because like John said, it's about $4,000 per person just for that training, and then you've got to pay them to offer the class. So you pass that cost on to the participants, and it becomes pretty costly. But this training is February 8th. I have registered for that training to get more information. It is 3 of the directors across the state that do offer it: Oxford Hills, Marana-Cook, and Massabesic, who will be providing information on this training. So I'll have more information about whether it's going to be a little bit more doable after that meeting. So, any questions?
No. All right, thank you, Jim.
Thank you.
All right, and Desiree, or Destiny, sorry, I think I did see you. Oh, yeah, there you are. Hello, go ahead.
Let me pull up my, okay, so we haven't had a lot of events happen since Christmas, since things are still winding up and the end of the semester is here. But after break, Drama Club spent a lot of time perfecting our show, Beauty and the Beast, which we presented on the 21st and 22nd. We did a double header on the Saturday night, and we sold out during the 7 p.m. and then again on the 2 p.m. show on Sunday. I think everyone who went, we had a lot of support from the community, which was really nice, and it means a lot to us as we're still growing and learning through our acting process, and it's great to know that we have everyone in the community just coming out who want to watch our show. We are also holding auditions for our upcoming one-act competition, which is featuring a play by senior Marcus Gallagher called North of the Borough. Drama Club will be competing in March, and we'll also be hosting an invitational dress rehearsal, and I will announce a date for that as time gets closer. Our school also held a poetry out loud competition where many students memorized poetry stanzas and presented it out loud, with Marcus Gallagher winning first place. The semester ended on the 20th, with many of us adjusting to our new schedules, and we also have NWA testing this week. Future Business Leaders of America is finalizing our plans to attend our annual conference from March 12th to the 14th in Portland. And this is our first overnight conference since before COVID. So this is an incredible opportunity that so many of us are really excited to attend. Acadeka, or Academic Decathlon, is also finishing up with preparation for our state competition on March 4th, which will be held at Monmouth Academy. Please root for us, because if we win first again, we will be able to attend nationals in Texas in April. Prom committee is also holding preparations for our prom to happen on May 20th, 2023. And that is all. Any questions?
Diane?
I don't have a question, but I have kudos to all of you who performed Beauty and the Beast. It was amazing. My husband and I took our 5 grandchildren on Sunday, and it was a packed house. It was wonderful to see that.
Thank you.
Laura?
I as well want to congratulate you and the rest of the group. We went on Saturday night and brought our 10 and 13-year-old, and they were very stayed through the whole thing, and a great job to all of you guys. So
Thank you. It was a lot of hard work. So
Anyone else? No? Thank you, Destiny. All right, so with no new business, we'll move on to new business 7.1 to approve a 2-night stay, March 12th through the 13th at Doubletree in South Portland for the FBLA State Conference.
So moved.
Second.
All right, any discussion? So Marco, are you able to kind of give us a little update about what this is?
Yes, absolutely.
you.
The Maine State FBLA Conference is one that, as you heard from Destiny, is a conference that we regularly attended, prior to COVID, and kids really got quite a bit out of it. This year, the conference will be held March 12th through the 14th. So that's a Sunday afternoon to Tuesday afternoon. And currently there are 36 students signed up to attend, which is pretty fantastic. And as you heard Destiny say, it's being held at the Doubletree in South Portland. We have 3 students that are running for state office positions, and they'll be competing. The group will be competing in 50+ business competitions. They'll be attending workshops on personal finance, entrepreneurship, college topics, marketing, career panels, job application, so on and so forth. They get to visit with college admission officers. They'll be listening to a keynote speaker, which is pretty exciting. That's Sean Gorman, who's the chairman of the board for LL Bean, which is fantastic. And plus, as I said, we have 3 students running for state office positions, so they'll be doing campaign speeches, caucusing, and voting for those state officers.
Great, thank you.
I just want to add that this would be, correct me if I'm wrong, Marco, but Oak Hill FBLA has won the state competition, I think, for the last 23 years that it has run.
Yeah, it's something that high, 20.
Yeah.
I know, I've lost track now, 20 something years straight. Yeah.
Yeah, and because there was, I think they ended up doing it on Zoom. Kathy's pointing thumbs up higher, it might be. I can just tell you from the experience of my own kids having gone through this, and one of them being one of the state positions, this whole experience is invaluable for them. They learn so many things, they develop so many connections, and the business acumen across the board that they take with them once they're done is just, it's not like anything else.
Mm-hmm.
We have a great program, and we have great leaders for it as well.
Any further discussion? All right, as seeing none, we'll go with the vote. Diane?
Yes.
Vicky?
Yes.
Jen?
Yes.
Robbie?
Yes.
Bob?
Yes.
Christy?
Yes.
Laura?
yes.
And I am a yes. Passes. Thank you. Have fun. All right. 7.2 to approve the first reading of the following policies. ADC, tobacco-free schools, use and possession of tobacco and electric smoking devices.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Bob?
Yes, so in the second page student section, we have a line in there that to me seems like something's missing. Because it says progressive disciplinary guidelines for students violating this policy for employing as practical to address prevention, education, and information. It just reads as this something is it employing techniques? Is it employing training? It looks like there's nothing in there that it talks about that we would be employing as practical. So I'm not sure how it's supposed to be read. We probably got this policy from someplace and looked at it. I don't think we probably wrote it from scratch.
No,
So
I'll double check it. It came from, back, I've got back. It came from the tobacco, Healthy Androscoggin. So I will double check to see if when I cut and pasted, did something get left out?
Yeah, that's a possibility too, but
Yeah.
it
Well,
just
I'll
doesn't
double
read
check it.
right. Just doesn't read right. There's something missing.
Okay, I made note of that.
All right, and then in definitions section, the fourth and fifth paragraph are not definitions.
Fourth and fifth paragraph.
Yeah, so it has tobacco use, smoking, tobacco
Yeah,
product.
I see that.
All right. So they're
You
not
don't like the
definitions
heading.
in that section, right? And I think you'll find that the fifth paragraph, prohibited from tobacco, or we have one.
Bob, you muted yourself.
I'm sorry. I believe my paper on top of something. So the fourth paragraph that starts about all persons are prohibited. It talks about advertising products as prohibited in school buildings. And if you go all the way to the end of this policy, there's advertising of tobacco products, advertising tobacco products is prohibited in school buildings. Kind of duplicative. I mean, it probably belongs under advertising since those other two don't belong under definitions, but
I'm making note of it.
yeah. And just as a comment, I'm always concerned when we quote statute like we did in definitions, because that means if they change the statute, we probably won't know that. And if we're quoting something and we're quoting a statute that's no longer valid, it just kind of opens us up. So I would move those statute citations under definitions to citations at the bottom in the legal reference section.
Yeah.
Right? So that way it forms a basis to go back to, but if they change the statute, we don't necessarily find ourselves in conflict. Those are my comments on that policy.
Anyone else? All right, seeing how there's no further discussion, I'll call for the vote. Diane?
Yes.
Vicky?
Yes.
Jen?
Yes.
Robbie?
Yes.
Bob?
Yes.
Christy?
Yes.
Laura?
Yes.
And I'm a yes. All right, down to EEAEF, video cameras on transportation vehicles.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing how there's none, I'll go ahead and call for the vote. Diane?
Yes.
Vicky?
Yes.
Jen,
Yes.
Robbie,
Yes.
Bob,
Yes.
Christy,
Yes.
Laura,
Yes.
and I'm yes. All right. Move on to GCSA, employee computer and internet use.
So moved.
Second.
All right, any discussion?
I have comment, I think it's this one. Do we have just an A without an R?
We have an R.
Yeah, we don't have one without the R. Okay, so I didn't write it down. So I have a comment where we're talking about, some reason I said the fourth paragraph, but it also applies to F. So 2 places in here. And F, which is on the 3rd page, it talks about computers remain under the control, custody, and supervision of the school at all times. That is not a true statement. They are not under the custody or the control or even the supervision of the school at all times. As soon as that, they just aren't. And those same words are used in one of the other places. And I forget what other paragraph it's in, but a search would.
Well, what don't you think we're doing? Yeah, can you explain your reasoning? What do you mean?
Well, it's just an untrue statement. All right. RSU 4 computers, it says remain under the control, custody, and supervision of the school at all times. They are not. Right now, Marco's got a computer at his house. It's not under the control, supervision, or the
Right, this is on.
custody of RSU 4. So this happens in paragraph F, which is on the 3rd
I
page.
see it.
All right. There's that same terminology is used on one of the other ones.
NJ would like to comment, Bob.
Yeah,
Hold on.
MJ has.
Yes, and
You're muted, MJ.
I think what you're talking to, Bob, is you're talking about a physical piece of equipment, like physically, like Marco has it physically in front of him, but I can disable it from here. Like each piece of computer equipment that we assign to a staff member or to, I wouldn't do that to you, Marco, or to a student is under our control, supervision all the time. Each one is managed by one program or another. I think that's what it's relating to more than physically in Marco's hands.
is it under your custody?
I think so.
Even though Marco has it, it's under your custody. So if he was to get stopped and there was something on it, it would be your fault
Stop.
because you have custody of it. Well,
I think
I just, I am, there's no
Sitting here.
expectation of privacy, and that's true,
Yep.
right?
Mhm.
I think that, everything else in there, in that section deals with, don't expect privacy because you don't have it. It's not your device, it belongs to RSU 4. So something about computers are provided by RSU 4 for intended educational purposes, there is no privacy. And in both places that's at, I just, I would never.
I wonder if we can reword that a little bit so that they're managed, so it could be more of custody, but managed by at all times.
Yeah, something, because if you read that, to me, I would imagine that there might be something in the thing that they sign for that says that they're going to maintain control of that device and not gonna, let it out of their little hands for other people to go and have it. So, I don't know, that was my only comments that appears in 2 places. In this particular policy. So that's my comments.
Also, I'll add a comment that we did change in the first paragraph, the his and her computer. I didn't see that one. We had changed it in the second sentence, and I have since changed it in that same sentence. I want people to know that was updated.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that. That his, her, every place is just kind of
Yeah, we picked up on that after they went in the packet.
I guess my Navy training, we had to write everything neutral. So
Yes,
it didn't
exactly.
express either a male or female point of view.
Mhm. Yeah.
All right, any other further discussion? Seeing there's none, I'll call for the vote. Diane,
Yes.
Vicky,
Yes.
Jen,
Yes.
Robbie,
Yes.
Bob,
Yes.
Christy,
Yes.
Laura,
Yes.
and I'm yes. Moving on to the next one. GCSA-R, Employee Computer and Internet User Rules.
So moved.
Second.
All right, any discussion?
I feel like we just had the conversation
it.
about this. Correct me if I'm wrong.
We did. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Seeing as there's none, I'll go ahead and call for the vote. Diane,
Yes.
Vicky,
Yes.
Jen,
Yes.
Robbie,
Yes.
Bob,
Yes.
Christy,
Yes.
Laura,
Yes.
and I'm a yes. Now on to the next one. JICC, Student Conduct on School Buses.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing as there's none, I'll call for the vote. Diane,
Yes.
Vicky,
Yes.
Jen,
Yes.
Robbie,
Yes.
Bob,
Yes.
Christy,
Yes.
Laura,
Yes.
and I'm yes. Okay. Next is JICC-R, Student Contact on Buses Rules.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All right, seeing as there's none, I'll call for the vote. Diane,
Yes.
Vicky,
Yes.
Jen,
Yes.
Robbie,
Yes.
Bob,
Yes.
Christy,
Yes.
Laura,
Yes.
and I'm a yes. Right, next would be JICCA, Student Conduct at Bus Stops.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion?
I just have a, kind of a general question. The first paragraph says that we're not responsible for these kids at the school bus stop. It's the parents' responsibility. The next one says, if you don't behave, you're subject to our disciplinary actions. So, and I don't disagree that if kids are acting up at the bus stop, there should be some action. But if we're saying we're not responsible for these kids while they're there, then how do we deal the discipline if they don't behave correct? That's my comment. I don't know how you deal with it. I don't, that's just the comment that I had.
Okay. Any further discussion? No, seeing as there's none, I'll call for the vote. Diane,
Yes.
Vicky,
Yes.
Jen,
Yes.
Robbie,
Yes.
Bob,
No.
Christy,
Yes.
Laura,
Yes.
and I'm yes. All right, 7.3, to approve the removal of the following policy form from the RSU4 policies. KF-E, Community Use of School Facilities Request Form.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion?
Has this been replaced?
No. It probably should have never been a policy in the first place because it's a form to use the building.
Yeah, isn't that what the -E means? That it's a form, the KF is the policy and the -E is the form. It's like the R behind the other one was not the policy, it was procedures.
Procedures.
Yeah, the concern, Bob, was that it gets updated often, so it would have to come back each time. Where it's a fluid form and it's not necessary to have it as an exhibit. I mean, you can choose to, but I think it was because if there needs to be changes or updates or that's why we discussed deleting it.
So you don't believe that the board should chime in on it, on the form to request public use or use of their facilities?
This was brought about with great discussion, Bob, with Jonathan as well. Because of all of the information, it was more or less trying to streamline directly to him. And there has been a notification process set up as well, so that once the form gets approval, he and the other, like the administrative assistants and all, get to be pinged to actually know who has use of the building at what date and time. And I'm thinking that the only time the board would actually need to have any sort of intervention with this was if there was ever a problem that rose above what Jonathan would have to deal with. Or, for example, the athletic director or something, if it was any issue with rec or, you know, Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, who knows? But the whole point was to streamline this process. And there were too many moving parts that could change over and over again in terms of like fee structure or anything of that nature. So that's why we opted to have it not be part of all of this, because it tends to have us as the board get in the weeds of the functions.
Well, only improving a form and how much we're going to charge for usage. That's the only thing that the board gets to in the weeds to on the form, because we don't look at the forms. We don't sign off on them when they're filled out. We just approve the form itself, asking for what information do we believe we should have on file from somebody that wants to use our facilities, and then how much are we going to charge them to cover our expenses for the use of our facilities. So I don't think that's a real reach. And if they're changing the form all that often, then we ought to give it some real solid consideration on what is really needed on the form and put it in, and it shouldn't be changed too often. We don't change it just because we got a new organization that asks for it, because that smacks of impropriety in modifying what information you want from one group versus the other. We standardize it. It's the forms exhibits, you know, doesn't take much to change an exhibit. Come here, you don't even have to have a second reading. You can probably pass it in a first reading if you wanted to. But just my concern on getting rid of something that collects that information that at one point the board thought was important, because I remember we had a good deal of discussion at the board when we worked out this form initially.
Makes sense. The only piece that I had asked for clarification on, I think we find that probably 90% of the people who are utilizing any of our facilities are nonprofit organizations, and that is specified on the form as well, so that we're not asking for any sort of fee from them. So that to me made more sense to have that there, but I hear what you're saying.
Robbie?
Yeah, maybe instead of getting rid of the policy, maybe we ought to revamp the policy and just say that the board has input on the creation of the form and what we consider as a fair charge if we like look at it every 3 years. You know what I mean? Instead of having getting rid of it completely and just going with the form. Because I think the board input on how much we charge and what the conditions are that we let the community use our buildings is pretty important. And those were pretty big discussions over the years.
I'm wondering, and okay, just playing the other side, if there's going to be changes to this form, it should go to the facility finance committee.
Yeah.
As an option. I'm just saying, yes, you could leave it an exhibit and it has to go through the policy committee and so forth, but it might be it's more of a finance facility discussion. I'm just putting that out there. This also will be going on Power School as an electronic form as well.
Yeah, sure. No, I think that's a great
So
idea
just,
as far as
you know,
accessibility, but I think the board input on what we have to charge, what we know, make sure that certain groups have the insurance that we need to protect us and you know, stuff like that. And I know that's probably all on the form, but it would be nice for the board to be able to review it from time to time.
Makes sense.
Any more discussion? If none, I'll go ahead and call for the vote. Diane?
You're muted. You
You're still
remuted
muted.
yourself.
Yes.
Vicky?
I have clarification.
Yeah, I was just gonna ask for that too.
So if we vote no, it's to keep it as a policy. And if we vote yes, it's to get rid of it as a policy.
To remove it, yes.
To remove it. Okay,
We're
then I
not,
vote
we're not removing the policy, we're just removing the form.
The form.
Yeah, okay. I vote no.
Jen?
No,
Robbie?
No,
Bob?
No,
Christie?
Yes,
Laura?
Yes.
And I'm a yes.
So we need to do the calculations on our form. I
Mhm.
have one.
every vote requires the calculation.
Yeah.
Well, I know, Bob, but when it's unanimous, I don't think I need to calculate it.
Right, you just have to put it in the minutes.
you've got 2 Sabatis, 2 Litchfield for the removal.
And a Wales.
No, you voted,
Two yeses for Sabatis.
and 2 yeses for Litchfield.
Litchfield. Okay. So I just need to do my calculating. Hold on.
And then you have 1 Sabatis, 1 Wales, 1 2 Sabatis, 1 Wales, 1 Litchfield to keep it.
234 for Litchfield. 123 times 2, 246 for Sabatis. 34. So we have a total of 480 for yes. And now the no's are how many from Litchfield? We have 1, right?
Mhm.
We have
2 Sabatis.
from Sabatis and 1 from Wales.
Yeah.
So the motion would pass.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So the form will be removed.
Yes, that's what people voted for.
Yeah.
All right, we will move down to committee reports.
All right. The Finance and Facilities Committee met this evening at 5:30 on Zoom. And I'll go over the numbers. These are in your packet. We're 6 months or 50% of the year through as of December 2022. Year to date, we've received $10,316,444.10, which is 51.54% of anticipated revenues. And on the expense side, we've expended $9,690,635.84, which is 54.51% of our budget. And year to year, we are expending less, a little bit less than we did last year. And our numbers are looking pretty good. So we have not had to freeze the budget. And I believe, is Jessica on? Do you know if that's the only time in the last 3 to 5 years, Katie, that we haven't froze the budget?
Yes.
Yeah, I believe so. So
Yeah,
anyway,
what I did instead of freezing is when I met with administrators to prep for budget, we looked at lines that they could be watching.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
it was a soft freeze in the sense of really give consideration about
Right.
what has to be done. Yeah.
yep, which is great.
Yep.
And on the facility side, we started out with a discussion with the heating problems that we're having at Libby Tozier and Jonathan and Siemens, working on that. And they have a meeting tomorrow to discuss solutions. So we hope that can get addressed and taken care of. And the big topic we talked about tonight was looking at our space usage in all our buildings. And the committee had a good discussion about that, and the options that were presented was closing one building, either Libby Tozier or Sabatis Primary. And we looked at the numbers for those, and closing two buildings, which would be Sabatis and Primary and Libby Tozier. And we looked at those numbers, and we will be bringing that information to the board for bigger discussion and moving to come up with a solution for that. And we are also still working on collecting numbers and putting it in the budget for our facilities, I would have
Feasibility, yeah.
feasibility study of which buildings would be the building that we close if we close one, whether it be Sabatis Primary or Libby Tozier. So we will be bringing that information to the board itself for a discussion and to get a decision on how we move forward on those items. Any questions?
Is everybody aware of what's going on at Libby Tozier? Okay, so I think you need to explain to them what.
Okay, well,
at Libby Tozier.
at Libby Tozier, what we're having cold classrooms. And right now, to rectify it, our custodians are going in and turning pumps on and off in different parts of the building. And it's a flow issue at Libby Tozier. So we either have a flow check that is sticking closed and not opening when it should, which is denying hot water to a part of the building, or we are having a flow issue with how the gravity system is feeding the academy building and parts of the classroom. So we're gonna find out tomorrow. I guess Siemens has come up with a plan, and Jonathan is gonna discuss that with Siemens tomorrow and figure out what we're gonna do to fix it.
Robbie, how cold are we talking classroom wise? I mean,
Well,
these are the lists.
Well, yeah, cold enough so students have to wear their coats in the classroom when they come in the morning.
Yikes.
Yeah, that's not good.
But at the same time, the academy's warm. So if
Right,
classrooms are warm, the academy's closed or is cold.
right.
So they're robbing each other of the heat supply.
So someplace we either have to do one of two things. We have to increase the flow or shut off the flow to certain parts of the building on certain times of the day. So we're gonna work that, Jonathan is gonna work that out with Siemens, and he's gonna give me a call tomorrow afternoon after he gets out of that meeting, so we can come up with a plan.
And is this the new furnace that we just put in?
Yes,
Okay.
yes. And the problem is with the new furnace, the water temperature on the gas-fired boiler doesn't have to be as warm as it is. We're talking probably 120 to 140 degree water compared to 180, 200 degree water in the old system. So the more efficient system is also not supplying enough hot water to the antiquated piping that we have in the building. So, yeah.
Yeah, remember we had no choice but to put a new boiler in there.
Right.
Yeah, so supposedly we had hoped it engineered it all correctly and everything.
Yeah.
So, all the other things that connect to it may not have been taken too much in consideration.
Yeah.
And we
So
look,
if there's things that need to be replaced, is that covered under the new install and new performance contract?
Well,
or-
that's going to be part of the discussion Jonathan's going to have with them tomorrow.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you, Robbie.
Yep. Thank you.
Right, Personnel and Policy Committee will be next time, CAI and Technology.
Yes, we met this evening via Google Meets, and we had special guests of our new high school phys ed and health, phys ed teachers. Ms. Quagliari, did I say that correctly? And Mr. Farah. And they basically were telling us about the change that they have brought with them to our phys ed and health classes, specifically phys ed, that they are really willing to try new things and also bringing with them past experiences. Very excited about the facility and having kids be outside and really shifting gears to provide opportunity for kids to develop lifetime fitness awareness and skills and activities that they genuinely enjoy. Some of which involve, you know, fun things such as kickball, pickleball, ultimate frisbee, disc golf, but also cross-country skiing and snowshoeing and sledding now that we have snow on the ground, playing capture the flag, also learning how to do some fly fishing and working in conjunction with the Sportsmen's Alliance of Maine. They went on some field trips this past fall to really have that experience. So that's pretty great. And one of the things that they had at the end of this first semester, Kathy Martin had opportunity and has connections with Michelle Finn, who has been on the show Alone a couple of times. And Michelle came and really spent time with the kids and talking with them about mental aspects and skills and different sorts of skills and requirements for survival things, as well as just perseverance and adaptation. And the kids just really love that because, again, it's really stretching their experiences and engaging them more because the semester end and activity end survey showed that many more kids are involved. They are really enjoying themselves and appear to have student credit recovery and all with this PE going in a very positive direction. So one of the things that will be coming to the board, I believe it was potentially in March, but it's going to come to the Policy and Procedure Committee. I had spoken about this earlier, was a change in the verbiage of the policies of IKFB, IKFA, and IKF to switch the verbiage of flip requirement out and change it to phys ed and health. And they're going to be working on that. The credit structure is not going to change. It's literally just going to be in the name. So again, that's going to come to policy and personnel in February for us to look at. The other piece that we talked about was the PLG having the early release feedback form go out, and Kathy mentioned this as well. It was important to have the questions be clear and direct and as simple and streamlined as the initial form was that went out last year. And we're looking, it's going to be going out in February, looking for the results to all be closed by the end of February. And the results will be presented to us on the 8th of March. And that's pretty much it. Any questions? Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Jen. All right, we will move down to number 9. Now, do we have any board member comments?
Yes,
Jen?
I just want to really reiterate what an absolute delight Beauty and the Beast was. Like, it's the first time since before COVID, I swear, that everybody in the community, it didn't matter, got to go and experience such a fabulous performance. It's unfortunate that we didn't have it on Friday night because I think, you know, them having 4 performances, they would have probably sold out every single one of them. It was amazing. Kudos to Lucy Rio and all the people who were involved. It was just exceptional. And the costumes were fantastic. I finally got to Oak Hill last night to see a basketball game. And it was quite a barn burner. Oak Hill ended up winning 65-63 in overtime. I gotta say though, I was disappointed. There was like no student representation there at all. It was the quietest and the least amount of people I've ever seen in that gym. And I've spent a lot of time in that gym. I'm hoping for future reference, Brian, that the MVC will consider not scheduling boys and girls on the same night at split campuses. I realize that there are cancellations and all the things that come into play, but I know that that was an issue beforehand. And I feel like people don't get to truly be there and to support their community and their athletes. So that's just my comments about that.
Yeah, a big piece of the scheduling conflict this year is we're in the second year of a 2-year cycle with cross conference games. So a lot of other conferences who do that same home and away games on same sites, opposite schools. So we kind of got roped into following their guidelines for this year, and we're hopefully next year to have a little more freedom with that. That situation, of course, did occur because of a cancellation. So it's definitely not ideal, but with the season winding down, we have to do what we have to do. But we're trying to make every experience better for the kids every day. So
Yeah. I was just shocked. I couldn't believe how quiet it was. And that's very unusual.
Laura?
I as well just wanted to recognize Brian Daniels and Chad Stoll. We've had great experiences with them this season with basketball, not really knowing what we were getting into with basketball, but also some of the girls teams shared, and as well as some other districts that we've been at Lisbon shared that Brian's been great to work with, and looking forward to continuing that relationship too. So I'm really excited about that. And then I just wanted to also recognize Mr. Ireland and Miss St. Pierre from the middle school, that they have just been fantastic with any questions or reaching out to. And, they've been working really hard in that district to turn a corner with a lot of things with the middle school, and it's not always an easy age there, but I really appreciate the support from them. So
I'd like to shout out to a kudos to Jonathan and Kathy Perry. It's been kind of a nice week with no bus cancellation calls. So kudos to all of you for figuring that out, that we don't have to have those calls. Now that I've said it, I've probably now jinxed us, right? So I just wanted to say thank you. I mean, it's great hearing from you guys, but it's also very nice not hearing from you on the other end. So thank you so much for your hard work. Diane.
I'd like to say kudos to our janitorial staff in RSU4. I worked in another school district, and believe me, our schools are so clean compared to what I've seen. Another thing also, I'm going to be meeting with the police chief in Sabattis regarding the crosswalk, because I've already met with Andy previously about the crosswalk. He told me to go to the selectmen, and the selectmen told me to go back to Andy. So I spoke to the police chief, and he said, come and see me. We're going to send something over to the DOP, is it Department of
DOT.
DOT, yes. He says, I have someone that I really know on there, and I think they could do something for us.
what crosswalk is that?
Right before you turn into the middle school, that you can't see until you're on it. And I know the kids on the street that I live on Woodside Drive, they do not want to walk to school because there's no sidewalk on either side. And the cars don't stop for them to let them go by, even though the crosswalk is there, nor do the buses at times stop for them as well. It's pretty dangerous, especially now where it's so slippery out. They have nowhere to walk.
Right. Yeah, I think that whole middle school thing with the safety committee and connecting with Jonathan will be helpful anyway, but
Yeah, I had people pass me too. When I went to pick up my granddaughter the other day, some cars got out of the line and passed me and then went up around where the teachers park and picked up their kid on that side of the, of the road. So it's
That's a
crazy.
daily occurrence.
And it seems like the same person all the time.
Mhm. They're special.
Yeah.
All right, I don't want to curb our comments, but we've got some more business I'd like to continue on to, as it is getting kind of late into the evening. So, 10
Before you,
point,
before you move that, who are we going to have in the executive? I would imagine we're going to invite the business manager and the assistant superintendent. Is that
yes,
true?
yes.
So they need to be named in the motion to be able to. So if you allow, I will make the motion and add those in. Right?
We had looked at the policy and it didn't say that they had to be voted in as they're part of our bargaining committee.
They're part of my management team, Bob.
Okay,
So-
I'm just, okay, so I'll go out statute and try and find it for you, because
Okay.
executive sessions are limited to the board members and the superintendent unless other people are specifically named. So it's the same as having one for dysentery. You have to go and mention who you're going to allow in for a dysentery executive session.
That would be a change from my experience. I've been
Well-
allowed to have management team there.
Yeah, well, that means we won't get into that, but
Okay,
I think we're safer stating who we're going to allow in executive sessions beside us, because that is, our motion is public information. What goes on is not. And so by naming who's going to be in the executive session, you let the public know who all is participating in the discussion.
Okay.
Go ahead with the way it is.
All right, 10.1 to enter into executive session pursuant to 1 MRSA 40560 regarding professionals collective bargaining agreement negotiations.
So moved.
Second.
Diane,
Yes.
Vicky,
Yes.
Jen,
Yes.
Robbie,
Yes.
Bob,
Yes.
Christy,
Yes.
Laura.
Yeah.
All right, and I'm a yes. Thank you, everybody, for attending. Stay safe. Hopefully you don't have to drive anywhere.
Kathy, are there, oh,
All right. Without any objection, I would like to declare this meeting adjourned at 9:14 p.m.
Ooh.
See y'all.
Perfect.
See y'all.
Good
See you
night.
tomorrow.